So Shadowserver is a volunteer organisation that exists to secure the internet as a whole. And so most of its work is sharing remediation information. So that's if we find victims of a compromise, either potential victims, so that's people who haven't patched their systems or that are vulnerable, or actual victims that have been compromised by a hack or any malicious activity. Shadowserver does the kind of day-to-day routine job of informing them. And it does that by working with the certs to pass on in really quite live time the victim information. The Registrar of Last Resort is a new project that's currently being funded by Shadowserver, and it's seeking to set up, in fact has set up, as a domain name registrar. And what its job is to do is to register only bad domain names. So it's a really easy thing to explain. We just look after bad domain names. We're a sort of global quarantine for badness. The goal, as with all this, is a little ambitious, which is to help secure the internet. So as we know, a lot of bad things use domain names, whether that's really low-level stuff like a domain name being advertised in a spam email you might get, all the way through sort of phishing, where a domain pretends to be a bank, and right up to sort of more sort of state-based and more serious threats. Botnets often use domain names to coordinate. So if you've got an infection on somebody's machine, on your own machine, that information will be stolen, exfiltrated, as we say, out through a domain name. Likewise, if there's a botnet or a system being used to attack, so a DDoS attack, often the same, it's coordinated via a domain name. So the goal of the registrar is to be a one-stop shop for everyone looking to deal with problem domain names. Not intellectual property, not protecting rights holders, but actually people seeking to protect the internet against all sorts of threats. So to allow them to concentrate on identifying the threat and not having to do the admin of registering a bunch of bad domain names, which nobody wants to do. We've got lots of people we want to talk to. On one side, we've got the registries. So when I said this is a really easy thing to explain and a really hard thing to do, the advantage of the internet is that it's so distributed. And so you've got a bunch of different registries, some of which are sovereign in individual countries, and some of which are under ICANN's auspices, the GTLD space. And we have to negotiate with each one of them to make this pitch, which is to say we'd like to work with you to quarantine bad domain names. On the other side, we've got the people who are reporting these. So that might be law enforcement agencies, academic researchers, security folk, anybody that comes across badness day to day and that wants to and thinks, well, I've got to do all this research and I've got to find somewhere to put these bad domains and probably pay for them as well. So that's the bit we're taking away from them. So we're offering to researchers and security folk, give us that bit of the problem and you carry on doing the brilliant work you're doing. And we're saying to the registries, hand us some of your risk, because of course they're holding a lot of risk by looking after these domain names. So hopefully as an intermediary, and being the thing I should have said first of all, which is that we're non-profit, we're politically neutral, and we're doing this for the good of the internet.